event short announcement. The driver of the car EPA 80AE is requested to move their vehicle. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second part of today's day, and welcome after the lunch break. It's going to start several panels of sharing ideas, and here we'll have Szymon Hołownia, publicist, reporter, journalist, social activist, and politician, and the candidate in 2020, the president of Association Poland 2050, and the founder of the political party with the same name. He has been working for Gazeta Wyborcza, Newsweek, Polska, Rzeczpospolita, and Prost. He also published in Catholic magazines such as Tygodnik Powszechny. It will be chaired by Tomasz Kamiński, professor at the Faculty of International and Political Studies at the University of Lodz, permanent associate of Liberté. Let's welcome them with a round of applause. Good afternoon. I don't have to introduce you because you have already been introduced. That's why we can start our conversation. We'll talk about two topics that intertwine, namely liberalism and green transformation. Your political party over a year ago published a document called Poland on a Green Route, containing 19 postulates that are supposed to take us through the transition. That's what I would like to talk about, but let's start with liberalism. If I were to attach a label to you, I would say that a liberal person would be far away, and your party belongs to liberal international area in Europe. Do you call yourself a liberal? When I look in the morning into the mirror, the first thing I say is, now I have to survive the next 30 minutes and then an hour, because that's the moment when I have to change the diaper of my 8-month daughter, and then the babysitter arrives. Perhaps one day in my life I'll try to attach labels to myself in the morning, but now I'm far from that. I understand that your question is serious. What is liberalism for you? Well, it's not going to be soothing for a scientist's approach, but I am simply a pragmatic person. The last thing we need are the missions of charismatic leaders. We need a cold pragmatism of not warm water in the tub, but a very pragmatic approach. The green transformation, green transition, and green revolution are the processes which can be compared to industrial revolution. Now we need pragmatic leadership that will take us step by step, procedure after procedure. In the very sense, we talk about economic liberalism, political liberalism. We can talk for hours about political liberalism. In the orthodox sense, it's not a remedy to all ailments. I'm the fan of everything that is included in social policy, and I notice multi-dimensional aspect of all relations. Political liberalism is something that is dear and important for me. That's why, together with our political party and our organization, we cooperate, but we are not in the core of this area. We refer to political liberalism, which is a huge achievement. I feel I'm a liberal person in this respect. The state should be something that extends the scope of liberty and freedom. We understand that Kaczynski would like to deprive us of the ability to determine. We need somebody who would give back our freedom. What freedom do we have if we go to a shop and we cannot select what we buy because we have limited amount of money? What liberty does a person who does not have any means of transport or commuting to work? What liberty does a woman have who cannot send her child to a nursery because the state spent money on something else? Today, Poles need someone to give their freedom back, the freedom of everyday choices, the freedom of conscience, but the freedom of following one's own development footpath, the freedom of buying in the shop whatever you want. We should have more of them instead of less of such freedoms. When you were presenting the program document about the green transformation, you said Poland needs a story about the green route and shifting towards greener economy. When you think about the story, do you consider a political mission of reinventing the world or creating a kind of revolution which is indispensable, or do you rather perceive yourself as a mechanic, 1,000 steps, 1,000 screws to replace in order to change the situation? I mean, different regulations. How do you see the new story? From the perspective of a mission or using the tools? I highlighted the aspect of a toolbox. It means we need to do specific things. Where would we be if these people didn't implement 10H Act? There were calculations saying that they and we would have surplus instead of lack of coal. It would have sufficed not to pass the law which leads to a situation in which you cannot build new windmills. We could talk for hours about these decisions. These are mechanical things, but please note the results. if we had 19% of wind energy in the energy mix, we would have cheaper energy, and then a lot of people would experience greater freedom. Our life would be different. All these little steps translate onto our freedom and liberty and on the story of our lives. If in such a situation somebody drains blood from our veins, we won't have the strength to tell the story of our lives the way we want. I have 2 points I would like to make. We know how to implement the procedures. We talk about it. We reiterate that we want to be the greenest party in Poland, and we want to have it on our colors. When I started traveling around Poland as an author of books, and I tried to implement this kind of narrative, some said, you know, these are the ecologists, beautiful spirit. We are talking about new perspectives, and they talk about fauna. However, if we know that there is no green transformation, we won't be able to afford our life. If we still burn coal in 2050, we can imagine what the emission prices would do. It will lead to a situation in which we'll be less secure. First, it will be Putin, then some shake, and the annual embargo on oil. People have to see it and have to understand it. Now they are more aware of environmental issues. They will try to rescue themselves burning waste, but it's not done carelessly. If somebody does it, it will be driven by despair. This is the state's role not to do it. I've been discovering for a long time that the state's role is to give people the opportunity to make good decisions, to broaden their cafeteria of answers, to have A, B, C, and D to select from. I live by a river. Since I've moved there, there has always been a mess. Shop trolleys, beer cans, vodka bottles, and so on and so forth. I organized several actions to pick waste, but there were no waste bins. The city authorities said not possible because it's nature park. Once they placed waste bins, the problem was reduced. There must be justice in the background, and this is what the story is about. Green energy is fairer. Green revolution is supposed to increase their sense of fairness. If we had energy dispersed among clusters and cooperatives, it would be fairer. We wouldn't have monopolies that raise the margin 70 times, and it means you cannot get away from it. I learned a lot when I started running my foundations mentioned in the introduction. Then I understood the links, what we finance in education, in healthcare centers. I understood that we need to build the world which holds us all. There are more of us, but we also have sufficient resources, but they are not well distributed. It's not about being a Robin Hood or the one like Kaczynski, who takes money from the rich and from the poor, and he takes his commission from both types of products he loots. But there is room for everybody. I wrote a book, Divine Animals. And I try to explain that if we give some space and if we move 5 centimeters to the left or to the right, there'll be more space for everybody. I don't have to stand up and lose my seat, but it will be to the benefit of us all. I don't agree with you that the environmental awareness is high enough, that we know it suffices to move ourselves 5 centimeters to the side. What I see is huge anxiety when people hear about successive transformations. We experienced the digital transformation caused by COVID. It had some victims, it was quite successful, but generally there were some victims. We are now experiencing a thorough social transformation. Now we are experiencing financial transformation because our money is reduced because of inflation rates. I can see fear, anxiety rather than enthusiasm. We are in the middle of a war situation, therefore you can't expect enthusiasm in any type of space. We could talk a lot about what contributed to Law and Justice winning power in 2014. I think that the lack of the sense of justice, which was accumulating, it was it, it has been accumulating since 2005. When I explained to my colleagues from abroad that we've got the holy war in Poland, and this is not the war of former solidarity and former parties, they are discombobulated, and I have to explain that these are two solidarities fighting with one another because there was no justice. People were working for 20 years. They were promised to catch up with the West. They wanted to understand and see that something happened. Nothing happened. And then the friendly uncle came and said, I will promise you this and that. I will promise you pie in the sky, but just vote for me. I can't see enthusiasm, but I can see pragmatic engagement. There are several thousand people in Poland who installed photovoltaic panels. They paid for it from their own money. You get 5,000 and the system costs several times more, but they decided to spend their own money. The people who discovered that waste segregations, sorting waste, and any other aspects that have become the part of our everyday life do matter. I established a Facebook group called Less. And these people still discuss how to use less rather than more. It's not about becoming to become a priest or a monk, but we have learned the skill, we have learned the awareness, and we use it pragmatically. Not everybody. Has the process been finished? Certainly not. But once you compare the situation 10 years ago and today, we live in a completely different reality. Don't you feel it's a matter of generation, that when we talk with people who are one generation younger than we are, there's difference in awareness?
I think it's an overgeneralization. I meet with young people, and when I do this, I can see fire It's represented by the young people's climate strike. So they will attack you, and they are saying that you are not radical enough. Actually, their attacks are not that strong, because they have noticed that now we have entered a very dangerous land, and my plans were too ambitious. The dates we were providing after the several years that have passed. So I respect young people, and I also talk with them. In my previous life, I was attending panels, we were discussing, we were arguing. When I had the presidential campaign, I was always asking them to come to the stage. I have never told them to go away. I remember when we met with Duda in Białystok, actually, Duda's meeting was several meters away from me. So when the young people representing the climate strike, they came to the stage, they spoke, but when they went to candidate Duda, actually, they received beating. It wasn't Duda, candidate Duda, it was the people, his supporters, who really asked them to leave the stage, and who were quite brutal towards them. They are the children who decided to declare war to their parents to survive. This is the generation of children who are fighting with the generation of the parents to survive, to live. So this is a very difficult ethical situation. When I'm looking at the older generation, the situation is different. There are people who will be laughing at the topic, but they will become a bit more reflexive when they will see the bills. Now money talks, money shows that it's better to be green. I know many people from the generation of my parents who are more advanced in this way of thinking than me, and they are acting like this more because they understand more, because they understand processes better, because maybe they are not that much involved in the present situation. They are looking from the meta perspective. Maybe they do not have enough space to behave appropriately, to have a choice, but it's a matter of the state. Again, I could be talking for hours. For example, we have to develop a prosumer-based program. If I have a plot of land, I have to see economic profits if I get connected to the grid. And if I start thinking about it, maybe I will be told that Obajtek will have to issue some decisions. So I have an installation on my roof, and I know that 20% is taken away from this installation and 30% from that one. And if I am going to build a new installation, I will have to pay 80%. So if you want to have a green mix, the state should provide subsidies, not to take 20 or 30% away. So I'm really angry. They received so many millions of zlotys from the previous government. They should spend the money to renovate the grid. Yes, it wasn't done, it's true. I would like to get back to the topic of young people who are very often emotional about such topics, and they treat it as a matter of life and death. When we are talking about the green transformation, we are mainly talking about getting rid of reducing the use of coal. In Poland, we produce only 1% of the emission. The future of the world will be determined by China, India, the United States, not in Poland. So there are huge emotions concerning this issue, and I don't think they are really needed. We shouldn't promote them. We should rather calm them down. Well, I can feel a provocation in your question. People are often using this argument. They're saying, "Oh, maybe first the Chinese or the Indian government should implement such reforms." So if we perceive it in this way, we will lose. China will be ahead. Now China can see what is going on the market, and now China has very radical targets concerning climate neutrality of this huge Chinese economy. I'm not disillusioned. I know the methods they will use to achieve these targets. In China, the party just gives an order. I have heard it myself when I was in China. we were delivering one of the projects of my foundation. So if in one province there was too much air pollution, 10 mines were closed, 10 cities which received fuels and which made earning from the mines, they had to go to refugees. They became homeless. So they do not care. They take a very quick decision. If you need to demolish churches, they do it. So they have planned very ambitious goals and they will accomplish them. India, I don't know what the situation will look like because this is a very specific economy and very specific country. We can look back at China and India, but what will it change in our perspective in 2050 if we keep saying first, let's see what China or India will do, and then we will have coal, everybody will be blackmailing us, and the prices will be 14 times higher than the French, the Germans, or the British. Of course, in the total calculation, maybe it won't be that bad, but you know, we have to be reasonable, and we do not want to lead to the situation when we say, okay, at least we were morally right. China's economy is very slowly decarbonized, and we've got competitive advantage over China, and we are losing the global competition. So we have to use customs duty for this purpose. It shouldn't look like this. It shouldn't be like this. You know that after COVID, economy is redeveloped. The supply chains have been broken. Now they are becoming shorter. Still, we have the recession. And the recession will make it its way. Paweł Wojciechowski, the head of the Economic Council, is here. He would be able to provide the details, but it will be a completely different economy. As the market that has very ambitious aims, we have to defend ourselves from the competition which really ignores such aims. I would like to re-appeal. Okay, let's look what the Chinese are doing. Maybe we will learn something or maybe not. But we are in Poland. And we have the specific energy mix of small chimneys, not in the large chimneys. This year, some 30 or even 50,000 people will die because Kaczyński allowed to use very bad materials, very bad fuels, which in the past were treated as waste. So it will lead, and in the past it caused some 40,000 deaths per annum. Now it will be 10,000 deaths more per annum. So we can say that, you know, that people will be dying, and we cannot say that it's because Chinese didn't do their work. We are responsible for CO2 emissions. It contributes to global warming, and then again we will need more electricity because we will have air conditioning systems. The rivers will be dry. So how can we impact the global issues? Only by taking part in the bodies that are the real power. When I was in Africa, I learned it. When the president of Poland, the prime minister, was coming, one representative of the EU was coming, but when the EU are having negotiations with so many member states, these negotiations are completely different. So when in Africa they were negotiating the bloody diamonds, and I was in Muganga province in Congo, where a foundation, it's hard to say that it's my I founded it, but this foundation funds a hospital which is in the war zone, the zone which lasts 20 years, and it's the war for raw materials, used for electronic products. I have seen the children. We were admitting them to the hospitals. I attended their surgeries. Children who are often covered with the earth, and these bags with soil are transported further down. The EU has possibility, has capacity to do such things, and Poland doesn't have this capacity in the international area. So we have to keep the position we have in the EU. We had it in the Weimar's triangle, and the position we could have when the UK was leaving the EU. Then this capacity was available, but we didn't benefit from it. This will be the topic until 2050, and we have to take part in this dialogue. Let's complete this international theme. You were working in Asia, in Africa. You could see the scale of developmental challenges for these regions. Maybe we shouldn't move by 5 centimeters, but by 15, because what's our moral right to tell them that they cannot develop to reach our level because they cannot have that many cars, they cannot emit as much as we can. So what is your approach to this problem? Because it seems in the European debate this is one of the key dilemma. What should we communicate? What our message as the EU should be for African populations? They want to develop, they want to travel by air, they want to have what we have. Today they hear from us. We go to Africa and we are telling them, you know, the planet, humankind. Mankind has led it to this bad situation. Not the mankind, it has been us. The climate crisis is really harming most those who have not contributed to it. So what's my moral right to go and tell them, you know, for 30 years I have been doing it, but you know, I could do it, but you cannot. We are, for example, advising Nigerian women to have fewer children for the purpose of the planet. How can I tell her that? How can I tell them to have only 2 or 3 children if she wants to have 5? What's the moral right to behave this way? You all know the numbers. You know that we would need many planets if everybody would like to live as a statistical American does, or as a statistical poll, 2 planets would be needed, and we don't have 2 spare planets, and the population size definitely will grow within this 100 years. At the end of this age, probably the population processes will start, but before it happens, there will be many guests coming to this planet. So looking at the African experience, what I have seen and read about Burkina Faso, Rwanda, Senegal, Congo, in all these locations we worked, in Zambia and Zimbabwe, Rhodesia have followed a different path, but Congo or Burkina Faso are classical examples. We had this African decade in the 1960s, parties regained independence, but it was just on paper. Metropolis were looting them, so they were made even more dependent. They were selling technology, so we were transporting our waste products to these territories. It was a nightmare. So now these governments usually expect they want to have a fair conversation and partnerships. So we should help them by saying that we won't use very high customs duty. We will save our farmers, and you will sell some of your foods for you to be able to develop. I have never seen so many creative startups as I have seen in Africa. It was my job for a while, and it's the market that really aspires to develop, but to develop it needs partners, understanding partners. If we don't do this, we have to aware what will happen. So if people do not want to accept that we as Europe should be responsible. Poland was not on time with Madagascar in the 1930s, but as Europe, we really should be blamed. But there is justice, the feeling of justice. We feel that Europe is the continent based on justice, on such values as social justice, brotherhood. we have to remember these values. So what will happen if we do nothing? There will be so many immigrants that we won't be able to cope. Lukashenko has been doing it now. We had a wave of immigrants, of refugees already. There will be the second and the third wave. I spoke with these people. There is a school for girls in Senegal, in Dakar, and these are the girls who are migrants from African cities. So they come to Dakar from different towns and villages, and this is a stop where they decide what to do next. So Polish nuns founded this school to give them a choice, to teach them jobs. Then they get very good references. They start working on the market. So I met many families which sold everything. They borrowed money. They sold their land, and I asked them, "Do you know what will happen if you move to Libya?" Slave trade is in Libya. People are sold for $100 or $50. This is a non-existing country where some dramatic procedures are applied. You won't survive. If you get on a boat and you want to come to Poland, you can drown. But they are determined. I have no more space left. So if you do not create space for these people, they will ask for something we've got or we have had, and we won't be able to blame them morally. I'm very happy that you have mentioned climate migrants, because it seems that in the next decades it will be a very important challenge for Europe, also for Poland. Let's get back to Poland. Let's assume, I think it's an optimistic scenario, that next year the opposition will create a government. You will be in the government, and you will be for the green transformation, and there will be this green deputy prime minister in the government, and you will be at the ruling party for, let's say, 4 years. You will introduce reforms. Maybe in the optimistic scenario you will rule for 8 years. But this green transformation, is this a challenge? It's a challenge for 20 or 30 years. So what to do to build a consensus on the green transformation? In Poland we find it hard to agree on anything, and the current ruling party doesn't have it on their flags. I can see that there is a huge threat to green transformation in Poland. The present opposition will become the ruling party, then the next party will come and withdraw it. What can I say? It's a phenomenon, negative phenomenon of this new democracy. I remember when Law and Justice Party won in 2015, and I met a friend from this party. He was so happy. I'm sorry, we use the word that is not denied. And said, well, first, we were jealous, and now you will have. So it's either 4 years or 8 years. So we come, we put you in jail, we get rid of all your laws, and we keep shouting that the previous government has caused all the problems. And then we will change, and you will do the same. You will imprison us, you will get rid of our laws. Can you live? Can you function in such an environment? I don't think it's possible. So what to do about this? So we should operate at two levels. In the first meta level, I am convinced this is the last election of the old world. In Poland, this old year started not in '89, but started in 2005, and this is the last MMA game between the giants that will have this clash. This is the last act of this old world. Once it ends, from the very beginning of the next term, we will have to start agreeing. Donald Tusk is always disagreeing with me When we are discussing the future until 2050, I hope that we will have the same program. So all these reforms we are having, we should implement to reach the V1 speed. 8 years is a long time and it can be done. We are very much for such reforms and we are open when talking about it. And many people blush when we say that euro must be introduced in Poland. This is Poland's obligation. So I'm asking people, your savings, do you prefer to have them in Polish zlotys or in euro? So then people have no doubt. So it's the task that will be completed in one term. I'm sure that when we win, we will have chaos to deal with. So once we are in the office, we mustn't just make this symbolical violence against their predecessors. From day one, we have to start working to make sure that we develop such green transformation architecture that no one will be able to destroy it. When we are talking about clusters, about wind farms, and if there is money, we have to establish a system. And even if Law Party has another reincarnation and comes back, so when they come, still, they won't have enough money to damage the system. Minister Sasin, he's a rare case of a Polish politician. He's so determined in his incompetence. They will ruin everything. They have no knowledge. They don't understand anything. But if we set it up, even if they come back in any reincarnation, they will be beneficiaries because it serves people, it serves the budget and economy. This cannot be reversed once you set it up. Okay, maybe they install the wind farms and they will introduce coal furnaces. Will they bury the nuclear plants? Will they go to the voters and tell them, we've got a great program, you will pay 7 times more for the energy? Green energy is cheap and money talks. So I'm not afraid of this. I'm afraid that we cannot be sure that we will win the next year's election. I have seen it for 3 years. When you are too certain of your certitude, you are approaching the fall. You have to be uncertain. It's stupid to share ministry. The only task of this government, the only thing of interest is just sharing ministry.
All right, so if I assigned the role of the green deputy prime minister conducting this energy transformation, every transition has its victims. We remember the one from the beginning of the 1990s. There was Leszek Balcerowicz, the deputy prime minister, who was called the Mengele of Polish economy. Would you like to be Leszek Balcerowicz of Polish transformation? Tempting, hard to resist. Now I should get up and say, yes, I do want nothing else but it. Every transformation, every transition costs. When there is the window for the European money, which will be closed one day, and there is the window to execute this objective, we can do it nearly painlessly or limiting the losses as much as possible. I am famous for my persistence in the approach to Turów. I asked specialists in mining who said it cannot be closed down overnight because it's physically impossible and we cannot stop the mine. Nowadays, nobody talks about it because without it, there won't be energy mix in Poland during the war. I went to Turów. I stood near the mine. I was chased by the protection guards, and we told about. We talked about those who work there. We were for guaranteed income for those who cannot be re-qualified. We can use any resources to make this transition fair. If it's supposed to last, it has to be just. There are some harbingers. Please note the energy transformation plan for Wielkopolska region. Private business has a good idea. They close coal mines, place PV farms, reclassify the people, buys electrolyzers to make green hydrogen. Near Wrocław, they will make a bus factory and they will sell a package of buses, charging stations. And there are many people who approach energy this way. They'll be the allies of just transition. Local governments know perfectly that a biogas plant is a perfect solution. Pawlak used to have such an idea, which he didn't manage to fulfill. There is plenty of agriculture waste, and we should produce heat and energy according to biogas plant formula. Using the money, we can reduce the number of victims. And even if somebody suffers a loss, it will be lasting and quickly compensated. It will not resemble the situation from the beginning of 1990s, not in any sense. It's a different process and a different story. The benefits of the process will be experienced in no time. Every successive week, every wasted month make me furious. I've got a counter in my smartphone and I know how much current is generated on my roof. And if I think how much can be generated in the scale of the country, I get tantrums. If I think we can win next year, the National Recovery Plan money will expire by 2026. How much time have we wasted? Hundreds of millions higher bills will be paid. As I understand your idea for the technological transformation, energy transformation is a scattered system. What about nuclear energy? The government announced a tender for a nuclear power plant. I am an advocate of nuclear energy. For instance, when we take the example of France, which is relatively safe, having quite a high amount of nuclear energy. Last year, you were not really sure whether it's a good solution. What is your stance today? I would like to be precise in the area we discussed previously. There is one good statement summarizing what I have said so far. The costs of not implementing energy transformation will be much higher than the costs of its implementation. It's a clear hint for you. You should take care of it. I've been reverberating it since the presidential campaigns. No children can be inferior to others, whether it's a politician's or miner's child. You ask about nuclear energy. I had the opportunity to talk to the previous head of the Polish nuclear power plan in the previous government. He told me that they had drawn the facilities, and the power grid representative said, "Great idea, we'll be ready to connect you in 10 years' time. Let's do it." Nothing has happened ever since. Now, everybody has decided that we should make a deal with the Americans to show that it's a good idea, that somebody likes them. You know, everybody wants to have a colleague, at least a one. But we need to remember it takes a long time. Let's take the example of the Finnish. They plan to open the power plant they started building 17 years ago, and it will be commissioned in December. If the Finnish have been building it for 17 years, can you imagine how many years it will take for Sasin to build? Sasin and Soskie and the Polish nuclear project, this type of intellectuals, the 23rd century is feasible? Will they live that long? Oh, you never know, you never know. And I will give you the answer as a politician. Yes, of course, they will live, because the health protection system will be reformed by us, Poland 2050, and we will ensure such a long future for them. I have to remember it for my campaign. But coming back to nuclear power, this is the project that will let us generate currents towards the end of the 30s. And we need it now. We need extra current, extra power to improve our energy mix. I am quite against nuclear power. We said that if we cannot balance the energy mix using green energy, we should consider SMRs. They've been commercialized, but it seems they are feasible until 2030. It's good technology which is modular and can be used by local governments or companies. You need one unit, you install it, then you can purchase another one. This is dispersed power generation. If a missile from the Kaliningrad region hits it, it does not destroy the entire grid. Since it's so dispersed, local governments know better how to manage the energy in their area. Every region has different needs. It's the same as with the healthcare system. We've got specificity of regions. People are more willing to work for clusters. They can add some power from biogas plant. They know that SMR will be a good solution in the area. Will be in favor of this technology in Poland, but first and foremost, renewable energy, wind and solar energy should be the priority for us. And we need high capacity there. If we don't manage to connect the system, I don't know whether we'll be able to give up on gas heating. Following Marcin Popkiewicz and his excellent book To Understand Energy Transformation, the author uses his intelligence. He undermines his thesis and proves that we can have energy mix based on renewable energy sources by 2050. So, if we need to use SMRs, then we will. Once we take over the power, we'll carry out an audit and find out which stage they reached with the project. In 40 or 50 years, nuclear energy will be obsolete, and it takes time to develop it and to implement it. If I could choose, I would do without nuclear energy. SMR first, but you never know. Otherwise, it won't be possible to use or to build energy mix. There are a few minutes left. If somebody from the audience would like to ask a question, please do. We need a volunteer with a microphone. I would like to ask the following question. If we could focus on green energy and if we started building windmills and everything would go towards green solutions, but then we find out that the conditions are not met and that we need some extra energy, can we as Poland afford it? Apart from the solar and wind energy reform, can we also use nuclear energy? Where are you? Ah, there you are, towards the back of the room. I couldn't see you. As I said, I have nothing to add. The priority is to build energy mix and to release the power from different sources. Then you have to accept SMRs. When we take a look at the example of energy development, it's tremendous. We can do much more now than we could a year or 2 years ago. It's going to develop just like mobile telecommunication, and the entire world is in it. Research and development is present globally. It might seem not necessary, but we'll have to be very conscious, cautious. Everything is better than fossil fuels, which are dangerous for our money and for our health. We have to leave fossil fuels as soon as possible. Whether it takes 10 or 15 years, it's a matter of smart governance. Let's leave fossil fuels, solid fuels, priority renewable energy sources. If not, then SMRs. If does not suffice, we should go to larger solutions. But it also means using solutions which will soon become obsolete. 3 questions maximum, and will give the opportunity to answer the questions. Andrzej Ziółkowski, I would like to say that I like your plans, but my question is, what can you do to make these dreams come true? Everything. Don't you think that pinching one another at every possible opportunity, does it lead you to fulfilling your objectives? And we need warm water in tubs. Right, the paradigm has become the top of our dreams. I don't know what you mean by pinching, but this is the part of politics which I like the least. This is a boyish thing. If you are a fair observer, you know that I am not the second best in this area, but it's measuring the potential, determining who is more powerful, who is going to be the one who sets the pace. At the end of the day, it's all about power. And that's temptation, and that's passion, and it awakes passion. If you have an impression they pinch somebody, I pinch them only when they hold me tight. I try to defend myself by pinching. And they pinch or grab me. I know it's a sad performance. It's better to do it face to face over a bottle of wine. I know what people talk about me, that I block united opposition, but I am ready to accept anything. I am pragmatic. I've been working for the media for 25 years, and I know that being in the opposition, it means the same. Should I go to press conferences? You go to politics for authority and for getting the power to execute something. When it is necessary to do it, we'll do it. Czechia is a good example with clear coalition agreement. You say that's the right way to do. We'll strike agreements. We are ready for any solution. If we have to make one list, we are ready to do it. We know that two lists can give us higher chances. Then we'll stick to two lists. Perhaps within 6 months, the decision will be made in spring, but it needs to be there. If it's possible to be an individual candidate, it's better, but I can guarantee that we won't mess it. That each of us who pinches one another, we want to show that we can do better. But at the end of the day, we know that in the world where law and justice rule, there is no future for us and no future for our children. And we need to deliver the project. If you ask me if we are going to strike an agreement, we will. Our time is up, unfortunately. Short question. I think we owe it to ourselves to say that there is nothing called renewable energy. It's only a wording, just like a green energy. If there was renewable energy, it means there are miracles, there is no thermodynamics. That's the wording. There is energy which has its constant source, such as wind or sun, and it's always present. But the system... Where's the question? Where's the question? These systems where we capture the energy are not renewed, and there are no methods to store the energy. I don't have a question. That's just a comment on what you said. I'm very happy to disagree with you, because there are methods of storing this energy. There are peak load power plants and energy storages. If you say these are not renewable energy sources, we can call them anyway. We can call them Sigma or Jarosław Kaczyński or Szymon Hołownia. It doesn't change anything. But an alternative, what is it? We must have energy. We have come too far. The civilization won't work with energy, and we need even more energy resources. If we don't take sun and wind, what alternative do we have? We can buy it from a sheikh, from Putin, And finally, they will conclude they will not pump oil to the market. And we need energy from the sun, from the wind, and this is our raison d'etre that every government should understand. If this is the will of the society to change this government, it will be our dogma. Szymon Hołownia used to say that his greatest dream when it comes to green transition is the moment in 20 or 25 years is when he says, Micah, we've done all we could in this respect. That's what I wish for you. I hope I will say it with a smile on my face and not crying. I drive an electric vehicle. I've got PV panels on the roof. I know how it works on the customer side. I know how to do it to make it work so that I can smile to my daughter and say, daughter, daddy didn't fuck it up. That's what I'm concerned about. My daughter will go to school in 2 years' time. Czarnek must not be a minister there, and I have to promise that for her.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Ihre Ausreise